US President Donald Trump delivers his first serious blow to Russia after the NATO summit, where during a meeting with Zelensky he praised the successes of the Ukrainian armed forces on the front lines and Ukraine's strikes deep into Russia. Just now, news came from Kiev that was clearly not met with joy in the Kremlin. Senator Lindsey Graham, who is currently in Kiev, announced that the White House and the Senate have finally agreed on the final version of the sanctions bill against Russia. The very one that has long been called hellish and bone-crushing in Washington. Lindsey Graham's words sound almost triumphant. About half an hour before this statement, according to him, an agreement was reached with the White House on a version of the bill that it would support. That means the document will finally become law. What is this bill? Why is it called hellish? And is it really capable of ending the war quickly? Let's figure it out in this episode. And most importantly, we'll answer the question, will it be passed? After all, we've been hearing about it for over a year, but it still hasn't come into effect. I'm Alexi Peachy. Let's discuss this together. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to the channel, give a like, and write any detailed comment under this episode. Be sure to subscribe. Let's reach the 300,000 subscribers mark as soon as possible, and you'll know that you are part of this community.
But President Trump is simply amazed by the success of the Ukrainian people in their fight for their own freedom. He is amazed at how they threw themselves into the fight, how they turned into tigers of war, how they managed to fight so effectively. He is amazed by the technology coming from Ukraine and how it can help us. I think President Trump loves victory and he sees Ukraine as a winner.
So, during a briefing from the center of Kiev, U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham stated that the text of the bill on tough American sanctions against the Russian Federation has finally been agreed upon with President Donald Trump's administration. It is expected that Congress will pass it immediately. The document, which Senators Lindsey Graham, a Republican, and Richard Blumenthal, a Democrat, have been working on for almost 2 years, is supposed to provide Donald Trump with the tools to quickly end the war in Ukraine. And now I will quote Lindsey Graham. I'm pleased to announce that, about 30 minutes ago, we reached an agreement with the White House on a version of the Russia sanctions bill they will support, meaning it will become law. I plan to discuss the initiative with Republican and Democratic leaders to advance it in Congress. If we did this in combination with creating tools to punish those countries that support Putin, that profit from this war, then I think we would have the best chance in the last 5 years since I've been coming here to bring Putin to the negotiating table. The document that Senators Lindsey Graham, a Republican, and Blumenthal, a Democrat, have been working on for 2 years, I'll provide it when I return to the United States. With Trump, we will try to get these countries to help end the war. I've never been more optimistic than I am today about the tools we have for ending this war as soon as possible. This is about the sanctions bill, a document that Senators Lindsey Graham, together with Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal, have been pushing for many months, and this is the main weapon. These aren't targeted sanctions, but an economic blow against the Russian war machine. The key mechanism is as follows. The bill gives the US president the right to impose tariffs of up to 500% on goods from countries that continue to buy Russian oil and uranium. The wording of the law is even tougher. The document requires raising tariffs to at least 500% on imported oil and uranium. Donald Trump supports a 500% tariff on all goods imported into the U.S. from countries that knowingly participate in the trade of Russian oil and uranium, as well as blocking sanctions against any bank working with Russian financial institutions. Lindsey Graham himself describes the essence in very vivid terms. This bill gives President Trump the tools to bring things to a swift conclusion. The document was introduced by Lindsey Graham, a Republican, and supported by all the countries that back the Democrat. And here is Richard. The most important thing to understand is why this could actually work. The strike is aimed not so much at Russia itself, but at its finances and partners. Lindsey Graham says these countries provide Donald Trump tools for a faster resolution. The document in which Lindsey Graham explains directly countries like China, India, and Brazil buy oil and other goods from Russia, and that's the money Putin then uses to wage war against Ukraine. The logic here is simple. Russia, under sanctions, hardly trades with the West anymore. The Republican says that's why it's pointless to hit Russia itself. Russia has nothing to lose in those relationships. Whether the US or Europe takes action, even if they impose sanctions or bans for years, Russia's budget is sustained by selling oil to Asia and Latin America. And this bill targets exactly that. It presents Beijing and New Delhi with a direct choice.
И вот законопроект бьет именно туда.
Either access to the American market, but if you buy Russian oil, then there will be prohibitive tariffs of 500%. For economies tied to trade with the US, the choice is, well, practically obvious. Graham frames the document as leverage. For economies tied to trade with the US, the choice is practically obvious. Republican Blumenthal helped give Donald Trump more leverage over China, India, and Brazil to make them stop buying cheap Russian oil. The document Lindsey, Republican, Democrat Blumenthal worked to provide, but how exactly are these sanctions supposed to force Putin toward peace? The mechanism and tools are in the law itself. For Ukraine? No, it's not just for show. It's a trigger. The document takes effect if Russia refuses peace talks, violates an agreement, or initiates another invasion, according to Senator Graham. So, it functions like an ultimatum with automatic enforcement. So, sit down at the table, or you lose your oil revenues when your buyers simply scatter under the threat of 500% tariffs. And this isn't a direct blow, it's a blow to the allies. And again, it's an attempt to give Donald Trump tools.
Это не...
Senators Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal worked on the document to give Trump tools to pressure Putin. Graham himself emphasizes that the main goal for Trump is not new tariffs or new sanctions, but to quickly lure Vladimir Putin to the negotiating table. And this document carries enormous political weight because, if I'm not mistaken, it was supported by 84 or 85 senators. That is, this is more than 2/3 of the upper chamber, and with this document the senators even have enough votes to override a presidential veto. So behind the law is something extremely rare. Consensus. And what's important is that the timing here is also not accidental. Lindsey Graham's statement comes against a backdrop that is getting worse and worse for the Kremlin. Ukraine has made concessions for the sake of peace, while Vladimir Putin only talks and continues to kill civilians. That's his quote. End of statement. He says Putin keeps talking and continues to kill civilians. That is his quote. Meanwhile, Lindsey Graham stated bluntly that Putin's main mistake was trying to outplay Donald Trump. For half a year, Trump tried to bring Putin to the negotiating table the easy way. Richard Blumenthal worked to give Trump the tools to do that. The attacks increased, Putin became more brazen, and this plush rat continued his actions. Washington's patience has run out. Even Donald Trump has run out of patience. So today, Matthew Whitaker, the official U.S. representative to the UN, let me clarify, he stated directly that, listen, the Republicans and specifically Donald Trump have made it clear for themselves. Democrat Blumenthal, yes, indeed, the armed forces work to provide the course of the war and Donald has it in his hands, strikes against Russia, well, Trump is already seeing the results. There's simply no point in arguing about the tools anymore, so Trump decided to take Ukraine's side, and now, according to Lindsey Graham's forecast, in the coming days the world will see weapons supplies to Ukraine. The document is at that level, really. Senators from Lindsey and from Europe and Canada, Graham, a Republican, and Democrat Blumenthal were working. Both the sanctions and the increase in support are in Trump's hands, but let's be honest about this quick resolution from the European side. And as for those 500% tariffs, they will hit not only Russia, but also America's allies and the United States itself. Some analysts call this scale a de facto embargo. Lindsey Graham, a Republican, and Democrat Richard Blumenthal initiated it. The price increases affected the United States. There is another nuance. The key word in the law is the president gets the authority. Well, for Donald, even the quickest resolution. The president gets the authority, meaning even after becoming law, the document does not activate automatically. To use this sledgehammer or to hold onto it, and they won't try again with something that Lindsey, Democrat Richard Blumenthal worked on to give Donald Trump the tools to have on hand and negotiate. So these hellish sanctions are, if we draw an analogy, more like a loaded gun hanging on the wall, but definitely not a shot that's been fired. So this is just preparation. Let's sum it up. For the first time in a long while, Washington is pulling out of its arsenal a weapon that doesn't hit a Russia already cut off from the West, but rather a document aimed at its last breadwinners, China, according to Senator Lindsay, India, Brazil, first and foremost Graham, and the logic of Republican Richard, oil money for 2 years, war, and to put the plush dictator Vladimir Putin before a choice. The negotiating table or economic isolation from buyers. Behind the law is bipartisan support from the White House, if Lindsey Graham is to be believed. Will this hellish gun really be what ends the war, or will it remain hanging there loaded as a tool of pressure? Now, according to Republican Lindsey Graham, it depends on the man in the Oval Office. The Democrats have finally forged a sledgehammer for Donald Trump, as they say, and it's ready and now lies on the table for Trump changing the situation. And the Kremlin understands this perfectly well too. That is, it's obvious that now we're entering a new cycle of negotiations. Or, according to the document presented by Senator Lindsey Graham, a Republican. And now, in the White House, Democrat Richard Blumenthal decided to return to using this pressure tool. And now in the White House, they've decided to go back to this tool again. For Kyiv, of course, this is a very good and positive signal. I'll leave it at that here. Your opinion, your conclusions, write them in the comments under this episode. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell, and don't forget to like. Всем пока.